You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's March the 20th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your cannabis and psychedelics news source found here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca. Let's see. As you notice, I'm by myself today. Cindy is on the road. She's actually probably anytime now heading to the Toronto airport and heading to BC. Yesterday or last few days, she's been in Toronto. And yesterday, the two of us got together for a short visit. I was actually in the city of Toronto. I drove down there and endured the traffic. So normally a 2-hour drive, but it took me 3 hours just due to the traffic to get there. And I went down to visit Marco Renda, Treating Yourself magazine. You can see the big poster there behind me. Treating Yourself had the magazine, as I mentioned, as well as the expo. So I was in Toronto visiting Marco. And to give everybody a bit of an update, you may or may not know, but Marco is dealing with liver cancer right now. And he's in the hospital in Toronto, dealing with some internal bleeding issues that they hope to have solved, and they will know more in the next few days. And if everything goes right in those next few days, he will be heading home and back to the house where he was at before going to the hospital. And obviously he will be having some, care and stuff like that while he's at the house. And, moving forward, going from there. So just so everybody knows, he says hi to everybody. And if you've got a few minutes and you're a friend of Marco's, reach out, send him a message, say, hi, buddy, whatever. Maybe even send him a request to see if, you got a few minutes to take a video call. Maybe you're in British Columbia, or maybe you're in Europe, or maybe you're in the USA, but you are friends of Marco's. Maybe send them, like I said, a short little message. I know some people might be concerned about bothering him. If he has time and he's up to it, he will contact you, respond back to your message. And if he doesn't, you've reached out to him, he's more than likely read your message. And, it's always nice to hear from your friends at this time of your life. It's something that, as we're getting older, we're all dealing with. So, alrighty, people. If you have any questions, send me a message. But best yet, reach out to Marco. Say hi. How you doing? All right. Other than that, I am going to get started with the news. I've got 8 stories for today. I'm just looking at them here. We're in Canada. We're in the U.S. And we're going to be talking about, obviously, the legal market in some parts of things. And we'll be dealing with psychedelics with a few stories as well. All right. So here we go. First story of the day. And it comes to us from StratCan. The headline says, legal cannabis plants do not void policy rules, the BC Court of Appeal. This is something a lot of patients have worried about over the years, and we're going to get into what exactly, and this is important, this is an important story, and what it all entails. BC Court of Appeal judge has sided with the man who previously had an insurance claim denied due to a small legal cannabis grow site in his home. In a ruling posted on March the 14th, the judge found that a previous court decision that sided with the man's insurance company was incorrectly interpreted, allowing the appeal. The man had appealed an order of the Supreme Court of British Columbia from 2021 that denied his coverage after a 2017 kitchen fire that was unrelated to his cannabis grow operation. Now, a lot of times people always said, patients, they have insurance on the house, but the insurance may not cover it if there's a fire, no matter where the fire comes from. And this is what happened here. Fire unrelated to his cannabis grow, and they denied his insurance because he has a grow in the house, and it had nothing to do with it, and they still denied it to him. The appellant, Anthony Bussato, lost his home in Beachland, BC to the fire. A claim he made to his insurance provider, Core Mutual Insurance Company, was denied due to the discovery by the insurer that the man was growing approximately 25 plants in his home. Sounds like he had a license for like 5 grams a day. Although the plants were authorized, so they're illegal, they're licensed under, from Health Canada, and he had been insured by Gore, the company, since 2014. The insurance provider denied his claim for compensation for his loss. Gore, in their denial, pointed to an exclusionary clause in the policy that did not allow cannabis cultivation on the property. Bussato sued the insurer, but the judge in the case sided with the insurance company. In the appeal, the new judge ruled that the first judge erred in the ruling, saying it was based on a previous court case, which the appeal judge said was not relevant as they dealt with illicit cannabis production. The first of those cases involved the illicit production of cannabis extracts rather than a legal licensed medical grow operation, while the second dealt with a 300 plant operation that the owners made efforts to hide. See, here they go again, comparing illegal grows with legal gardens, and they've done that in court cases in the past, and they get shot down every time, and it's great to see the judges shot him down here as well. Bussato made no such efforts to hide his small grow operation. In addition, even after denying his claim for a supposed breach of policy, Gore did not cancel Bussato's policy and continued to collect payments. They're collecting payments, but they deny his claim. Since the applicant's cultivation was not illegal, nor did it create unusual risks, the appellate court reasonably expect the exclusion did not apply, wrote the Honorable Judge Winningham. In part of their decision, they go on to say, I accept that the appellant did not give evidence about his expectations, but it is reasonable for an insurance company to expect that an exclusion, which is drafted in a way that targets illegal activity, would now apply to illegal use of property? Way to go, judge. Now, the appellant goes on to say, from the judge, the appellant was using medicinal marijuana to relieve chronic and debilitating pain experienced following back surgery. Now, he had sought and obtained a license that was permitted to grow up to 73 plants. He only had 25. Christ, he only had a third of what he's allowed to grow. While not determinative, the cause of the fire had nothing to do with his marijuana plants, as the trial judge found, and there was no suggestion that the appellant misled or misrepresented the insurer in any way. Further, the judge relied heavily on an underwriter's evidence from an Ontario case where the same exclusion was at issue in a different circumstances. In my view, these circumstances support a finding that it would be unjust or unreasonable to give effect to the exclusion the judge has ruled here. There you go. Patients once again having to go before the courts to battle for things that are legally right. It just is not right. All right, just so you know, I got a message from Cindy. She says, "Good morning." And she says she's on her way to the airport. There you go, Cindy. Have a good trip. And we'll talk to you, I'm sure sometime when you're out west. So, yeah, there you go. Legal patients, once again, getting shafted. And it's just not right. We're fighting all the time. All the time. No. Okay. On to my next story. It's just been one of those mornings, people. So here we go. Next story up. This comes to me from MJ Biz Daily. Will marijuana rescheduling happen under Trump? Industries doubts grow. Here we go. So do mine. President Donald Trump's choices over his first 50 days in office, including appointments to lead the federal drug and health agencies, are sowing serious doubt that marijuana status under federal law will change anytime soon. That's the gloomy vibe lurking outside the U.S. Capitol and seeping into C-suits as the marijuana rescheduling process began in October of 2022 by former President Joe Biden. Now it's on hiatus due to the change in government. For those remaining hopeful, the belief is that the Trump administration might do something before the end of the year. But skeptics wonder if the administration will simply cancel the process to downgrade cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. All in all, so they say here from U.S. Rep. Dina Titus, says that all in all, so far, the actions of this administration have not matched President Trump's previous rhetoric in support of cannabis rescheduling. Dina is the co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus. Now, despite near constant victories in individual states, with some recent exceptions, the federal marijuana policy reforms that many companies say are vital to achieve probably remain exclusive. Most executives and operators in the $32 billion U.S. regulated cannabis industry present a brave face in public, despite acknowledging privately that the tax relief provided by moving rescheduling cannabis won't happen anytime soon. Washington's lobbyists are nevertheless holding the line. Trump endorsed both adult use legalization in Florida and federal rescheduling during the 2024 campaign. And there's no reason to believe the president has changed his mind. But according to Doug Culver, the senior vice president of public policy at the U.S. Cannabis Roundtable, he says, we are still taking the same policy position as we have since the election. The president has clearly stated his support for cannabis reform, for rescheduling, for banking access and states' rights. We have every expectation that he'll follow through with his commitments. It does appear the cannabis industry has more access to the White House than ever before. For example, Crystal Labs CEO Charles Bachtell and True Love's cannabis CEO Kim Rivers attended the Trump's inaugural ball. That's a much closer tie than anyone in the cannabis space apparently had been with the previous administration. But skepticism that rescheduling will resume, or if it does, yields a helpful outcome, is more and more widely held. Other lobbyists and observers told MJ Biz Daily, and they're also creeping into public disclosure. Perhaps the most prominent voice so far is Ken Culver, CEO of major multi-state operator Green Thumb Industries, who said during the February 26 earnings calls that at the moment, it's hard to think anything will fundamentally change at the federal level. Green Thumb representatives did not respond to MJ Biz Daily for a follow-up comment, but the company's prognosis, not a popular opinion, Culver says, is based on public data points, such as Trump's appointments, including Terrence Cole, a longtime Drug Enforcement Administration official and cannabis skeptic, to lead the agencies. I know where these people are coming from because I agree with them. Cole's most recent role, observers note, was serving in Virginia's Governor Glenn Youngkin's Secretary of Public Safety. Virginia is notable for being the only state to have legalized adult use cannabis without approving a retail market. Critics told MJ Busy they hear Cole's voice in Youngkin's public statements as he vetoes bills that would have regulated cannabis sales, and they wonder if Trump might take similar cues from his top cop or his top drug cop if Cole is confirmed by the Senate. Other negative signs, including a flip-flop on cannabis reform by new Health Secretary Robert Kennedy. After voicing for support for cannabis during his failed presidential bid, Kennedy told senators during his confirmation hearings he'd defer to an apparently hostile DEA on the matter, while separately promising anti-marijuana Republican lawmakers that he'll study the risks of high THC products. However, cannabis rescheduling could become a distant fading memory if one factors in recent hostile acts towards cannabis research and Trump's Truth Social post in September, in which he endorsed medical cannabis and scheduling cannabis, therefore offering hope for tax relief from regulated businesses and more reform. Regardless of their overall, IMJ Biz Daily all stressed that it's still early days for the Trump's White House and nobody seriously expected significant movement immediately. Now, we certainly knew that the first 100 days would not be our window, says Shanta Penny, the executive director of Coalition of Cannabis Policy, Education, and Regulation. They go on to say that I think folks are stepping into the reality that this is not going to be a quick win, some boasted. They're finally understanding that this is going to be very, very slow process at best. One angle some advocates want to pitch to the administration seemingly bent on dismantling the Biden's camp accomplishments is for Trump to serve as the corrective. Under Biden, the DEA appears to have gone rogue. As documents from the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel released last spring show that the agency argued eternally against Health and Human Services finding their cannabis has a currently accepted medical use. And in the months leading up to the highly anticipated rescheduling hearing, critics say the DEA stacked the witnesses list for the hearing, which they did. I don't doubt that whatsoever. Been reporting on that. And they said this presents a twofold opportunity tailor-made to appeal to Trump. Do something popular, something that the Biden administration would not do. So the question of priorities remains. Trump's style of governing also could work in the cannabis industry's favor. In the past, most constitutional scholars agreed that the administration process Biden launched is how the executive branch could bypass Congress and reclassify cannabis. But in the unpredictable gloves-off Trump era, rescheduling cannabis or removing it entirely from the Controlled Substances Act list via an executive order is another option. However, that presupposes cannabis ever makes it onto a Trump to-do list. They say everything else that's going on in the world, I don't know if cannabis is a high enough priority for Trump, according to Kat Backer, who is the director of drug markets and legal regulation at the New York-based Drug Policy Alliance. And in the end, he says it's definitely not a high enough priority for the Republican Party. So there we go. Who knows? All we can do is wait and see what happens. It's unfortunate. Yeah, and the last administration, the DEA on that obviously was working against rescheduling. And as the article says, though, unfortunately, some of the picks don't look encouraging. So all we can do is wait and see what happens, because it is a big thing. And they talk about state rights, which is something I personally don't like, because there's still that people would still get busted because certain states would still have things illegal. Would the federal government jump in for people crossing borders with cannabis. Right now, for example, even from different countries, I can go across the U.S. border with my medication, but I can't go across the border with my cannabis medication. Why not? Should be able to do that. If it's federally illegal, maybe it would be, but on a state right situation, it wouldn't be. Then you can have some states would have dragtarian laws, and other states where people will be prospering. So there'd be unlevel field of legal cannabis across the U.S., and that's not good for anybody. So, all right, on to my next story of the day. Headline from the Business of Cannabis is Canada's cannabis market. Study reveals price, not store count, drives usage trends. Yeah, people can afford it. They're going to go buy it, right? You can have a store there. It doesn't mean people are going to buy it. The price of cannabis has more significant effect on consumer behavior than store count, according to a newly published study on the Canadian cannabis market. Published in the European Addiction Research, exploring associations between cannabis prices, stores, and usage after recreational legalization, examined trends from 2019 to 2023, in which time legal cannabis stores increased 13-fold, while prices dropped by 28% on average. Now, since 2019, 1 year after Canada legalized cannabis for adult use, the number of licensed cannabis stores jumped from 250 to over 3,500 in 2023. According to the study led by Michael J. Armstrong of Brock University, this only had a limited impact on overall cannabis use. By analyzing government data on cannabis use prevalence, product choices, and age of initiation across Canada's 10 provinces, the findings show that cannabis use increased among women and people aged 25 and over, but there were no significant changes among men and adult ages between the ages 16 and 24, and the percentage of daily users remained largely consistent. However, the study also found that lower prices correlated with increased consumption among older adults and women, as well as a shift from dried cannabis to edibles. Furthermore, the average age of first-time users increased over this period, which is attributed to both lower prices and store availability. And this flies in the face of studies from the U.S., which implicate a direct link between the store's density and usage rates, suggesting Canada's dual online and physical store sales models may have softened the impact of store volumes on consumption behavior. I don't know. But yeah, obviously, having more stores does help access. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, the price is there. People are going to go there. The price isn't there. They're just going to keep going, right? To some other place, or they'll stop buying. So all we can do is, I guess, see what happens on their next report. All right, heading to my last story of the first break, and here we go, or the first segment, however you want to call it. Here we go. Headline says DOD commits $9.8 million to study psychedelics for active duty troops. This comes to me from the militarynews.com website. And it goes on to say, officials at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center confirmed they will receive one of two $4.9 million grants from the Department of Defense to fund a study of MDMA, the active ingredient in the street drug known as ecstasy. And this is according to the Military Times, some emails there. The psychedelic medicine will be given to active duty Army personnel with mild to moderate post-traumatic stress injury to study the physiological flexibility patients experience as a potential mechanism of MDMA's therapeutic effects. The second grant, provided as part of the 2024 Defense Appropriations Act, will fund a separate MDMA-assisted therapy study done in partnership between Emory University and StrongStar, a medical consortium and training network based in the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. While the U.S. government first conducted illegal experiments with psychedelics on soldiers half a century ago, this new study marks the first ever trial of MDMA for the treatment of PTSI. We're calling it I as an injury versus a disorder in active duty soldiers. Now, Major Aaron Wolfgang, the head of inpatient psychiatry at Walter Reed, who specializes in treating PTSI, will be the lead author and physician of the double-blind placebo trial. Wolfgang is the first author in a systematic review and overview of the MDMA and MDMA-assisted therapy featured in the January issue of the American Journal of Psychiatry. The article, written by a cohort of leading psychiatry researchers, describes common misconceptions about MDAs due to its close association with classical psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin, and mescaline, and I'm going to say probably raves as well. The parties out in the middle of the bush with the big thumping music and all that. So, unlike other psychedelics, the paper says MDMA uniquely induces pro-social subjective effects of heightened trust and self-compassion while maintaining ego functioning as well as cognitive and perceptual lucidity. This apparent gain of function suggests what advocates for the legalization of MDMA have been saying for decades. The medicine is uniquely positioned to be a breakthrough therapeutic for post-traumatic stress injury and other depressive orders. The new study expects to enroll 91 active duty service members, not anticipated for redeployment. Each participant will receive 3 MDMA dosing sessions between 3 and 5 weeks apart over the course of 10 months. Participants would receive their preparatory sessions before the first dosing session and 3 integrated sessions after each dosing session. Unlike other MDA assisted therapy, psychedelic assisted therapy long-term studies like this will be one of the first that I'm aware of to incorporate long-term follow-up that remains double-blinded, which will provide us with higher confidence data, according to Wolfgang. The pharmaceutical company Lykos Therapeutics, formerly MAPS BPP, made a major push back in December of 2023 for MDA to receive the FDA approval. When approval was denied in August of 2024, the result came as a shock to advocates for psychedelic-assisted therapy, many of whom were veterans and their family members. Now, according to Jonathan Lubecki, he's a veteran who served with the Maritime Corps Bravo Battery 15th Battalion. He says, I think the PTSD should be treated while you're in service, not force you to decide to stay in or get out in order to receive the care you need. Now, last June, Lubecki provided testimony at an FDA public hearing where he credited MDMA-assisted therapy, which he underwent in 2014, with allowing him to truly live quality life, people, for the last decade, and weather many of life's traumatic experiences long after returning from his deployment. Wolfgang believes the military will have more success in evaluating the legitimacy of MDMA-assisted therapy. And it says here that the history of MDMA and the military runs deep. An animal toxicology study of MDMA was done by the U.S. Army Chemical Corps in 1953 and 54 as part of the secretive Edgewood Arsenal experiments. Jeez, so they were doing it way back then, and now they're still like. Back then it was obviously done quietly, and now it's out in the open. So hopefully they get some better results or some good results that will get approved and allow veterans access to the medicine that helps them. Only makes sense. All right, people, it is time to take a commercial break and time to hear from our sponsors. And other than that, you're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education and News. I'm live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Camelford Lifestyle Shop, open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats, and look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Camelford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Camelford, Ontario.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, welcome back to Psychedelics and Cannabis Education and News. I got 4 more stories to go before I call her a day. So before we get to that, first story. Headline there from StratCan says researchers at a Vancouver college want to find the best pre-roll in Canada. Be interesting to find out who wins this contest. Researchers at Langara College's Applied Research Center in Vancouver recently began collaborating with BC cannabis, BC-based cannabis producer Pure Sun Farms to discover what makes the best pre-roll. The work, which launched in January, is one of several announced projects at the college's Applied Science for the Canadian cannabis industry, which are supported by $4.7 million in grants from the federal, provincial, and private funders, including companies like operating in the cannabis space, such as Pure Springs, Avacana, and Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Cannabis researcher Marcus Rogan tells the Langara Voice that this cutting-edge research is relatively unique, since few companies test the consumption process of their products. Rogan says, If you smoke the same joint 5 times, you'll see that they'll behave slightly different. Burn slightly differently, you don't see that with a cigarette. Rogan and his fellow researchers are using a mechanical lung they call Carl to mimic the act of smoking in a controlled setting. One of the goals, he explains, is to balance the effects of THC and terpenes throughout the whole joint. He says that how much THC, how much CBD, how many terpenes you inhale per puff, and for the whole joint. He says that we'll see all this stuff in these tests. Cannabis pre-rolls have been gaining market share in recent years, although quality continues to be a challenge for industry and consumers alike. The number of units of cannabis pre-rolls delivered to stores in Ontario surpassed dried flower in early 2023, with that trend increasing in the first half of 2024, according to the most current data. Another cannabis lab has undertaken similar research into vape pens to better understand the realities of the impact of the use on the hardware. Laguerre's college cannabis research will continue into 2026. The college was awarded one of the largest grants received by a post-secondary institution in British Columbia for cannabis research in 2021. The ASCCI research project received a grant of $2 million from the Natural Science and Engineering Research Council and $1.3 million from the Canadian Foundation of Innovations. The research addresses questions of importance to industry, such as what is the genetic basis of cannabis varietal designation? What is the relationship between varietal and compound production? How can new varietals be developed in a targeted way? According to Kelly Svensson, she's a chair in Applied Research Center at Laguerre College, and she says connecting industry, college researchers, students, and other institutions. This program will leverage federal funds to build competitiveness in the sector and develop skilled people in the field. Now, people are always saying we need more research, and we do need more research. You know, this is research, but I think a lot of the people are looking for research as far as the medical research. It's nice to know how a joint burns and getting the perfect joint and all that stuff and so on and so forth. I know that my joints all burn away same time. They don't canoe or anything like that. So, but they want to be able to build the perfect joint, and we'll see in time whether they can do that. But when it comes to research, we want some more medical research, people. That's what we want. That's what they keep saying we don't have enough of, right? When they turn us down for things. Alrighty, here we go. Next story. This one comes to me from MedPage today, and the headline there says microdosing LSD fails to ease ADHD symptoms in a small trial. It might have failed, but it's still something that news that people need to know. That they're trying it, they're testing it, and who knows? Maybe there's something that down the road that they can change. Maybe they learn something in this that they can use to in a further test. So let's see what it says. It says low dose treatment with LSD failed to improve symptoms of ADHD in adults in a double-blind randomized phase trial. Now, after 6 weeks, the group who received a 20 UG biweekly dose of the psychedelic had a mean improvement in adult investigator symptom rating score of 0.71 points compared with 8.9 points among the placebo group. So the placebo group had a better result. And this is according to Matthias Lechet of the University Hospital Basel in Switzerland and the colleagues. The LSD dose was well tolerated with no serious adverse events, but did not improve symptoms over the placebo on any of the study measures. Now, Lechet goes on to say that although there are reports of microdosing effects by users, this first placebo-controlled trial in patients did not find such effects. Thus, expectancy and placebo effects are likely playing an important role in the perceived effects of microdosing psychedelics. Both study groups demonstrated improvements in self-rated measures of ADHD, including the Conners Adult ADHD Rating Scale and Adult ADHD Self-Reporting Scale, which were administered at baseline, then every 2 weeks to week 6, and at the end of study visits. Both groups also showed improvements in observer-rated measures for 3 weeks after the dosing period. Now, microdosing psychedelics, as LSD or psilocybin, has gained quite a bit of attention in recent years, and it sure has, with the goal of enhancing well-being, cognitive functions, and emotional processes. The researchers explained in their introduction, according to the surveys and naturalistic studies, microdosing has been used by patients to self-treat various disorders, including ADHD. Findings have indicated that impact on symptoms has been positive. Goes on here to say a microdose is generally considered to be 1/10 to 1/20 of a recreational dose, an amount that does not induce significant acute perceptual changes or interfere with daily activities. Microdoses or low doses of LSD typically range from 5 to 20 UGs, with a common practice of taking the psychedelic once every 3 days over several weeks. However, clinical evidence from controlled studies in patients is lacking. Would the current study results have been different with a longer trial? According to the researcher, no. Says a longer study duration would not have been likely to produce different results. We cannot exclude the different doses or daily dosing would be effective. Also, high doses of LSD have been shown to be effective in anxiety disorders and depression. It could also regulate mood in ADHD patients. This needs to be investigated, he told MedPage Daily. So even he's asking for more investigation, adding that research with higher doses is indeed being planned. It's already planned. For this 6-week parallel group, researchers included adults aged 18 to 65 who had a previous diagnosis of ADHD and presented with moderate to severe symptoms, defined as scores of 26 or greater on the AISRS and 4 or greater on the Clinical Global Impression Study severity score. Patients were randomized to twice-weekly treatments with either low-dose LSD or the placebo for 6 weeks. Mean age was 37 and 42% were women, and the mean AISRS score in baseline was 36, and the primary outcome was change in symptoms at week 6 was measured by the AISRS, and treatment was considered safe and well tolerated psychologically, with 124 adverse events in patients treated with low-dose LSD compared to 64 in the placebo group. The most common were headaches, nausea, fatigue, insomnia, and visual alterations, which occurred more frequently in patients treated with the LSD. They say 23 versus 8 among the placebo group. 2 patients in the LSD group dropped out due to strong acute effects or effects that impaired their daily activities. And for acute effects, mean maximal responses on visual analog scales for drug effect were 52% with LSD and 22% with placebo, and means 5-dimensional altered state of consciousness total scores were 13 and 4.9% respectively. And they say limitations included that the study was powered to find a large effect size, and thus very small effects may have been missed. 95% of patients were enrolled with a single site due to logistical problems. Interdimensional variations in responses to psychedelics were not accounted for, and other outcomes related to ADHD, including emotion regulations, were not assessed. So there you go. LSD did not help in the microdose end of LSD, and hey, not everything's going to be beneficial for everything and everybody. So, alrighty, going to move on to the next story. And we're going to head over to Germany. We always like covering stories from all around the world. And here we go. Come on, it's supposed to be there. There it goes. Okay, from the International Cannabis Business Conference, over 250 German cannabis pharmacies to gather in Berlin. All right. Here we go. Germany is home to the largest legal medical cannabis industry in Europe, with cannabis pharmacies serving as the foundation of Germany's emerging industry. Legal medical cannabis sales launched in German pharmacies in 2017, and since that time, the sector has grown exponentially. And just think, here in Canada, originally, pharmacies didn't want to have anything to do with it. It's cannabis. It's a drug. So on and so forth. The tunes have been changing, obviously. Now, Germany's emerging medical cannabis industry was already enormous in scope and market value before the nation's new CanG law took effect. However, since April 1st of 2024, when the first provisions of adult use legalization became effective in Germany, the nation's medical cannabis industry hit an entirely new rate of growth. The main contributing factor to the dramatic medical market increase in Germany is the removal of cannabis from the nation's narcotics list, which was a key component in the new CanG law. The removal of cannabis from the list made it easier for doctors to prescribe cannabis in Germany, in addition to improving the medical cannabis supply chain and boosting domestic medical cannabis production. Medical cannabis continues to be the biggest winner of Germany's adult use policy modernization efforts so far, despite the boost in patient numbers still being in the early stages. Before April 1st last year, researchers estimated that Germany had between 20,000 and 300,000 active medical cannabis patients. That number is projected to increase to as much as 5 million in the not so distant future. Additionally, according to a recent report by the Blumwell Group, prescriptions for medical cannabis in Germany increased by roughly 1,000% between March 2024 and December of 2024. Medical cannabis imports are also increasing in Germany, with imports surging over 70% in the first 3 months following the enactment of the CanG law compared to the same period in the prior year. The International Cannabis Business Conference will once again bring its flagship 2-day conference to the iconic Astro Berlin Hotel on April 29th to 30th, amidst the historic shift in Germany's medical cannabis industry. International Cannabis Business Conference Berlin is Europe's largest and longest running cannabis business-to-business event, and this year's installments will be bigger and better than ever, as a heavy focus on Germany's emerging medical cannabis industry. Over 250 German cannabis pharmacies are expected to be represented at the International Cannabis Business Conference Berlin as part of the new feature of the conference. All German cannabis pharmacies can receive free VIP tickets to the 2-day event. Interested cannabis pharmacies in Germany are encouraged to contact the International Cannabis Business Conference team so they can sign up to receive these free tickets. Now, the International Cannabis Business Conference in Berlin is the perfect place for the cannabis pharmacy operators to showcase their brands and to network with entrepreneurs, investors, and industry service providers. Conversely, attending the event in Germany is an effective way for medical cannabis products makers and investors and entities offering pharmacy industry services to meet directly representatives person to person, face to face, right? They say it's an unparalleled opportunity to establish profitable business relationships. So they expect over 5,000 cannabis leaders from 80 countries are expected to be represented at this event. So that's 5,000. That's a lot of representation. So, all righty. Big things going on there in Germany. Let's just hope that it's all for the better, right? And it sounds like numbers are going up, patients are getting access, which is one of the most important things going on when it comes to patients and cannabis, is getting access to their medication. All right, on to my last story of the day. And this one comes to me from psychpost.org. Headline says psychedelics use is linked to lower odds of frequent bad headaches. Sounds like they're going to do things with clusters. This is a long story, so I probably won't cover it all, just so you know. But they say new research published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology suggests that people who have used classic psychedelics, such as LSD or psilocybin, at some point in their lives may be less likely to experience frequent bad headaches. Analyzing data from a large British cohort, researchers found that lifetime psychedelic use was associated with 25% reduction in the odds of reporting frequent headaches. These findings contribute to growing interest in the potential of psychedelics as a treatment for headache disorders such as migraines and cluster headaches, which can be debilitating and difficult to manage with current medications. Migraines and cluster headaches are two types of severe headache disorders that can significantly impact quality of life. Migraines affect about 15% of the population and are characterized by throbbing pain, nausea, and sensitivity to light and sound. Cluster headaches are rarer but even more intense, often described as some of the worst pain a person can experience. Both conditions are typically treated with medications, but many patients struggle to find effective relief, and available treatments can have significant side effects. Now, the idea that psychedelics could help treat headache disorders is not new. Reports from the 1960s suggested that substances like LSD and psilocybin might have beneficial effects for headache sufferers. More recently, controlled clinical trials have provided further evidence that these compounds could reduce headache frequency and intensity. Psychedelics' primary work for interacting with serotonin receptors in the brain, which are also targeted by many conventional headache medications. This similarity has led to researchers to explore whether psychedelics might offer a novel approach to managing these conditions. It says here, according to the study author, Carolyn Rand, says that people with cluster headaches and migraines often have an important impact on their quality of life due to the severe pain they are suffering during headache attacks, and also because the treatments we have for cluster headaches sometimes lack in efficiency and cannot be used because of secondary results. For example, triptans. The first line of treatment typically does not work for a quarter or one-fourth of the patients. Because of this, there is a need to develop new treatments for primary headache patients. Headache, and as people with headache, most typically cluster headaches, sometimes report that they have self-medicated with psychedelic substances with great success. We believe that these compounds need to be investigated more closely. That was all from Carolyn Rand. Now, for their new study, the researchers analyzed data from the National Child Development Study, a long-term British cohort study that was followed individuals born in 1958. The data set included information on 11,251 participants who answered questions about their health and substance use in adulthood. Participants were asked whether they often experienced bad headaches, with responses categorized as yes or no. They were also asked whether they had ever used a classic psychedelic, specifically LSD or magic mushrooms. Those who reported using either substance at any point in their lives were classified as having a history of psychedelic use. The researchers then performed statistical analysis to determine whether there was a relationship between long-time psychedelic use and the likelihood of experiencing frequent bad headaches. The analysis accounted for several other factors that could influence headache risk, including sex, marital status, financial situations, body weight, physical activity, smoking, adult use, and use of other drugs such as cannabis and ketamine. And the results showed that people who had used psychedelics at some point in their lives were significantly less likely to report frequent bad headaches. Specifically, lifetime psychedelic use was associated with a 25% lower likelihood of having frequent headaches, even after adjusting other factors. Interesting, when researchers analyzed the data separately for men and women, they found that the association was stronger with women. Women who had used psychedelics had a 30% lower chance of reporting frequent bad headaches, while the effect in men was not statistically significant. This sex difference could be due to various factors, including differences in headache prevalence. It says that women are more likely to suffer from migraines and differences in overall drug use patterns. There was a substantial difference between sexes with a stronger effect in females, which I was surprised by, Rand told PsycPost. Perhaps the difference is due to overall higher drug use in males, which constitutes a major compounding factor. We know that females are overall more severely affected by headaches, and the results may also reflect underlying biological mechanisms. Now, further analysis showed that the effect was consistent for both recent and past psychedelic users, suggesting that the potential might last long after the medicine has been taken. However, the study could not determine whether psychedelics directly reduce headaches or whether people with frequent headaches are simply less likely to use psychedelics. I know myself, it's been like 40 years since I've used any psychedelics really on a regular basis, and I hardly ever had a headache, so this doesn't make sense. Rand says that we saw a lower proportion of headaches in study participants who used psychedelic drugs in their analysis because of the nature of the data we have studied. We cannot make any assumptions of cause and directionality of the effect, which means that our study does not give any clear indications whether these substances can be used as a treatment for headaches. However, the study adds to the body of evidence of a positive effect of psychedelic substances on headaches, which warrant for further randomized controlled studies of these substances, and further studies will tell if psychedelic drugs can be used in headache treatments or not. So there you go. Good news. Good news. See, what LSD didn't help the people with the ADHD, but LSD helped people with the headaches. So there you go. And that was my drug of my choice back in my 20s. And like I said, headaches are a rarity in my head. So let's maybe there is some truth to that. So maybe take a look at maybe yourself. Now that you've got this story, something like that, look back. If you did psychedelics years ago and you have a friend who maybe has headaches all the time, they didn't do psychedelics. Because I have a friend, a very close friend, that never did psychedelics, but has headaches all the time. So maybe there is a connection there. So you just never know. All right. Other than that, I'm done. Just thanks to Leslie, Dwayne, and Cindy for the thumbs up and the hearts and everything, and really appreciate that. But other than that, that's it, folks, from the Legacy420.com news desk. That's the news for today. I hope you found it educational and informative, because that's what we try to do here, and that's why we have education in our name, right? Thanks to Legacy420.com, the Camelford Lifestyle Shop, Addies.ca, and Limestone City Hydroponics. Don't forget, you can catch our next broadcast. Today is Thursday, so it'll be Monday morning, 10 o'clock. Other than that, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. Talk to you then. Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.